Welcome to the Stillman School's Integrity and Professionalism Convocation. My name is Joyce Strasser, and I have the privilege of serving as Dean of the Stillman School of Business. So as you probably know, most of you that is, we come together regularly as a community here at Stillman to reflect on our core values of integrity and professionalism. We take very seriously the commitment that we have made to transform concepts into practice, to make the lessons of the classroom come to life. Convocations like these give us the opportunity to see leaders who, through applying principles of integrity and professionalism, are making a difference in the landscape of business and creating real change, positive change in their communities. And tonight's speaker, Mr. Kevin Cummings, is a perfect example of that type of servant leader. Mr. Cummings is president and CEO of Investors Bank, a position that he has held since January of 2008. In that role, he is working with senior executive management to guide the bank's strategic expansion and evolution into a full-service community and commercial bank. Under the executive team's leadership, Investors is experiencing significant growth while remaining financially sound and well-capitalized. As a result of its outstanding performance, Investors was recognized as one of the top 25 publicly traded small-cap banks in the United States on Sandler O'Neill's Bank and Thrift Small Stars report since 2011. Investors was named on Forbes' Best Banks in America list in both 2012 and 2013. And in 2012, Investors was named among Fortune's top 100 fastest growing companies. In addition, Mr. Cummings was the only banker named on New Jersey Biz's 2013 Power 50 Real Estate and Construction Report, and he received the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award in 2011 for his success in transforming the bank into a growth company. Prior to joining Investors Bank, Mr. Cummings had a 26-year career in public accounting. He worked with KPMG and was an audit partner in the financial services practice. In his time at KPMG, Mr. Cummings worked in the New Jersey community bank practice for more than 20 years, serving clients such as Summit Bank, Valley National Bank, Provident Bank, and Hudson City Bank. Mr. Cummings earned a BA in economics from Middlebury College, where he excelled in academics and sports, playing both basketball and baseball. As a matter of fact, he ended his basketball career as the school's all-time leading scorer. I think we could have used you this season. He also earned an MBA from Rutgers University School of Business. Yeah. Mr. Cummings gives generously of his time to a number of worthwhile endeavors. He's a member of the Audit and Finance Committee at St. Peter's Prep, former chairman of the board and current trustee of the Summit Speech School, trustee of the Scholarship Fund for Inner City Children, trustee of the Liberty Science Center, trustee for the Visiting Nurse Association Health Group, and the former chairman of the board and current member of the executive committee of the New Jersey Bankers Association. He is also a board member for both the Independent College Fund of New Jersey and the All-Stars Project of New Jersey. Beyond all that, Mr. Cummings is a great and true friend of the Stillman School and Seton Hall University. As many of you know, he is an active member of the advisory board of the Stillman School's Leadership Development Honors Program. And through his generosity, Investors regularly gives 2 scholarship awards to our undergraduate students. In addition, this fall, Mr. Cummings and Investors Bank co-sponsored the inaugural Business Ethics Seminar of the Stillman School's Micah Center for Business Ethics. So please help me give a very warm welcome to Mr. Kevin Cummings.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening, and Joyce, thank you very much. I'd like to thank Mike Reuter for getting me also involved here at Seton Hall. It's an honor to be here tonight. And I couldn't help Seton Hall basketball, believe me. When I played, I wasn't big, but I was slow. So, and in addition, I went to the last 2 games down at the Rock. I watched the Georgetown game, wonderful game, played great defense, won that game, and I had the misfortune of being there Friday night to watch the Providence game. So I wish them good luck in the Big East tournament. Well, it's good to see so many people here tonight, and I really think it's a great opportunity to share some ideas and some of the experiences that I've had, over my 26 year in public accounting and the last 10 years at Investors Bank. It is certainly a privilege to be here to talk about something that is very important to both me and to our leadership team at Investors Bank: the importance of character and ethics in business. As part of this integrity and professionalism series, you've heard from executives in the insurance, telecommunication, pharma, and media fields, to name a few. This evening, I have the honor of speaking with you about integrity and ethics in the banking business. Now, that might be a difficult thing to do, but really, what you see in some of the issues, whether it's the Wolf of Wall Street or things of that nature, believe me, bankers are not bad. In fact, dating myself, the whole Hollywood description of Wall Street or bankers, I'd rather see it as a wonderful life with Jimmy Stewart as opposed to Michael Douglas and Wall Street. At Investors Bank, we're certainly not infallible, but we do take great pride in our culture of service to others and trying to serve the underserved in our communities. And you might be thinking, can a bank in today's world really operate with honesty and integrity and still be successful? What about the ongoing pressures to drive the bottom line of your organization? What about the pressure to increase shareholders' return? And if you look at some of the Wall Street banks, what about the pressure to increase the profit on each and every customer and each and every transaction? Well, these are fair questions, and I've spent a good deal of time reflecting on how to bridge my own personal convictions with the capitalist model of seeking better returns for my shareholders. Like many Seton Hall students here, I grew up in a Catholic family, and my religious beliefs helped shape my personal values. There were times when it seemed like the principles of my faith might be at odds with my goals as a business leader. Add to this thought the conversation of income inequality in Washington and the recent communications of our new Jesuit Pope regarding capitalism, business competition, and social justice. Can the camel make it through the eye of the needle? But I've asked myself, can you be successful in the corporate world and still do business by a set of values that aims for the greater good? Here's what I've discovered. It's not only possible, it's preferable. And the secret to achieving that kind of success, to being that kind of leader, can be summed up in 3 little words: put others first. The best leaders in business and sports put the interests of others ahead of their own. Rather than being a self-serving leader, the best leaders are leaders who serve. That's the mark of a true leader. As students of the Stillman School, you are steeped in the tradition of servant leadership. Your education here at Seton Hall is preparing you to do well by doing good. If you sincerely embrace this school's core values of professionalism and integrity, as well as compassion and commitment, and you go on to live by these values in the business world, I guarantee you that you and your company will thrive. It has served me well. Simply put, integrity and success in the business world can coexist. In fact, they go hand in hand. It makes sense. When you care about other people and put their needs first, they follow you. Not because they have to or were told to, but because they want to. I've seen it over and over again. It is the servant leader, not the self-serving leader, who wins the trust, respect, and loyalty of both his customers and his employees. As students of the Stillman School, you will be receiving an outstanding education. It's an impressive program that offers you access to critical thinkers, corporate leaders, and an accomplished faculty. But someday, you will leave these ivory towers and move on to a career in business. And what will you carry with you? Those powerful core values, professionalism and integrity, compassion, that they can transform you into a leader who will make a difference. So in a sense, you might say that these core values are the greatest gift of this great university. Because when you leave the campus and begin your career, those values will be your moral compass. And I promise you, you will need that moral compass as you grapple with tough choices and decisions. Every corporate executive or self-made entrepreneur is faced with a multitude of ethical challenges. Your career will be no different, but hopefully you will be different. You will be prepared. You'll be armed with professionalism, integrity, compassion, and commitment, which is a strong foundation for making even the most difficult decisions. Now, just like you, at Investors Bank, we've distinguished ourselves and established a set of core values that are our guiding principles. We refer to them as our 4 C's: cooperation, character, community, and commitment. These values are part of our DNA and serve as a moral compass for how we operate internally, how we conduct ourselves with our customers, and how we contribute to the various communities that we serve. In fact, as we've grown, we've recently expanded our 4 C's to 7 C's, and none of them are Cummings, okay? We've added a communication, because as we grow from a community bank to a regional bank, we will need more accountability, and we will need more trust. Competency. It's not enough to be the kindest bank or the most generous bank or the nicest bank. We need to be the best bank with the best products and the best people. And the last C is a little different. It's called caring. Because my biggest fear is that we will lose our soul as we get bigger. We will lose our entrepreneurial spirit as we become one of the largest companies in our region, with a market cap in excess of $3.5 billion. This caring, this camaraderie, this teamwork, this chemistry that we have at Investors Bank is really our competitive advantage. It's the main reason for our success. How else can you explain a bank led by a guy from Jersey City doing so well? Huh? But the bottom line is, and I saw this once at a hospital in the elevator, and there was a sign about the nurses. And they said, "No one cares how much you know till you show them how much you care." And I can honestly say that the more that we have adhered to these values, the more successful we have been. The more that we have done for our customers and for our community, the more we have prospered. In 2007, the Paper Mill Playhouse, right down the road here over in Millburn, lost its strategic direction and ran into some financial problems. Its 2 national banks were about to force that theater into bankruptcy. Investors was the bank that stepped in to make the bridge loan for $3 million to give the paper mill time to partner with the township to save this iconic theater. It was not a great business credit decision, but it was a great community decision. It was the right thing to do. It was a statement by the bank that we are a different bank, one that believes not only in service to its shareholders, but service to the greater community. The story of Investors Bank is a story of doing well by doing right. I'm proud to say that our core values are the cornerstone of that success. Now, being an accountant and being involved in sports and doing a lot of coaching over the years, I remember Bill Purcell's statement, "You are what your record is." So all this talk about the how and the what, I always said it's the why that makes things important. But you can't get away from what your record is and the numbers you put up. As an accountant, CPA, and the leader of Investors Bank, all the talk about values, mission, and vision go out the window if you do not execute on your strategic plan. True leadership involves inspiring your teams and getting things done. Leadership is about service, first and foremost to your employees, your customers, and the communities that you serve. If you take care of those three constituencies, your shareholders will be happy, and I'll be happy to keep my job. So let's take a look at Investors and what we've done over the past few years. First of all, when we put this slide together with our financial group, it was called The Challenge. And I don't see things as challenges. I don't see things as problems. We only have opportunities at Investors Bank. And that type of can-do attitude is prevalent throughout the organization. In 2003, my predecessor became the CEO of the bank, Bob Cashel. Not a Seton Hall graduate, St. Peter's College graduate. And Bob took over for a bank that was probably about 70 years old, was very, very successful, but really didn't have a business plan. In fact, the bank, 80% of its assets were invested in mortgage-backed securities. It had a loan portfolio on a $5 billion balance sheet of only $700 million, and it was all in residential loans. It didn't manage credit risk. It avoided credit risk and had a lot of interest rate risk on the balance sheet. We called it a fixed income bond fund in 2003. And our job was to change the direction of the bank. In 2003, our COO, Dominic Kamina, joined the bank in April, and I joined the bank in July after a 26-year career with KPMG. At that time, we had an off-site strategic plan, and we decided to change the direction of the bank. We were going to move the cash flows from the mortgage-backed securities portfolio, take the cash flows, limit the growth, and reinvest them in residential loans. And that was the strategy, moving from a fixed income fund to basically a savings or thrift bank model. Very similar to what Hudson City is and what they did when they went public in the year 2000. And then also, we had to create a sales culture. So we hired firms like Disney, Ritz-Carlton, to come in and meet with our sales force on the retail side, on the branches. But really, the branch managers that we had at that point in time wanted nothing to do with sales. In fact, one branch manager said to me, if I wanted to go into sales, I'd join an insurance company. Their job was to service customers, stay in the branch, not get involved in the community. So that was we had the business challenge of transforming the business, transforming the balance sheet, but we had an even bigger challenge of changing the culture of the organization. And we used the term evolution, not revolution. Be patient, and give everyone a chance to succeed. Well, one of the things that led to our strong success was the management team that we began to hire. Just last week, we had a management meeting at Liberty Science Center with the top 200 people in the company. I asked a question at that meeting, how many of you here tonight were at the bank in 2003? Of the 200 people that raised their hand, there was less than 10%. So we've transformed the company. We've gone from 400 employees in the 2004, 2005 to over 1,500 employees today. And as part of that process, we had to implement not just sales training, not just product training, but we started and hired consultants that came in 2011 and 2012, 2010 and 2011. And these consultants, we spent over $1 million, not in training expense, but in making an investment in our employees. It was basically leadership training. It was geared to a college course, 40 hours. It was based on the book by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. This book was commissioned by Andrew Carnegie in the 30s, and was like the first self-help book of its time, before the Malcolm Gladwells, the John Maxwells, and the leadership books that we see today. And that course, during that course, we studied companies: Panera Bread, Disney, Ritz-Carlton, FedEx, Southwest Airlines. For example, I had to give a presentation on Ritz-Carlton. I showed up at the class, 20 people in the class, showed up in a tux, had chamber music from the New Jersey Symphony, string music, served Eggs Benedict, met everyone at the door, took their coat, walked them to the seat, and then made my presentation on Marriott Corporation and Ritz-Carlton. That type of service I wanted to show our teams firsthand. And then finally, changing the mix of employees. You know, John Neitzel, our Seton Hall graduate that's here tonight, he came up with the phrase, serve a customer or serve someone who serves a customer. First and foremost, be a good teammate. We don't want the Alex Rodriguez attitude in our locker room and on our team. We want the Jason Kidd. We want the player, the teammate, the coworker that makes other people better. Then, putting all these things in place, in 2005, we did one of the largest IPOs in the thrift industry. We raised $500 million. But what happened, 2007, 2008 came along, I lost some hair, and would you believe it, in 2005 I had black hair? But it's been a tough few years in this economy. But actually, for us, for a bank with excess capital, and only a very limited, in 2007, only a very limited exposure to commercial real estate, we were able to build a brand, create a commercial bank in the last 6 years. In 2005, we entered the commercial real estate business, and at that time we joked because when the recession hit in 2008, we really didn't have that much exposure. We only had $400 million in commercial real estate, 250 of which was in construction. And the good thing was that we entered construction lending in 2006 and 2007. The bad thing is that we entered it in 2006 and 2007. It was at the very height of the market. Prices were not getting any higher. So of that 250 million, that eventually grew to about 400 million, we took close to 100 million in losses and charge-offs. But we had the capital to sustain that growth. So we took the commercial portfolio, and because the other national banks with billions of dollars of exposures were pulling back, the insurance companies were pulling back, the commercial mortgage securitization process, the Wall Street banks were pulling back, no one in 2009 and 2010 was lending. And that was like the Great Sea opening up for us. It was a tremendous opportunity for a bank with excess capital to create a brand and to create an opportunity to grow its commercial business. In fact, I tell the story, in 2005, in June of 2005, when we made our first commercial loan, it was a construction loan for 38 homes down in Brick Township, New Jersey. That very first loan, because of regulatory concerns, we had to wire the proceeds of the loan to PNC Bank because we didn't have a commercial checking account at the time. So that's the progress that we've made over the years as far as transforming the culture and transforming the business plan. We've grown from $5 billion in 2007 to over $16 billion today. And that growth has been both a organic growth story of expanding branches. Our branch count has gone from 45 branches to 130 branches, and also an acquisition story. So it's been a combination of organic growth, which is approximately 40%, 60% of the growth, and then the acquisition growth has been 40%. And I know there's some accountants here tonight, but we did, and I don't know, certainly the professors will remember this, but we did the last pooling of interest in the history of the SEC. Because of our ownership structure, in 2005, we raised $500 million, but we only sold 40% of the company. We are still 60% a mutual company. So a mutual came to us and wanted to join us, Summit Federal Bank, in 2008. And with a white paper that we sent down with the help of our outside accountants, KPMG, we were able to get pooling of interest accounting. Now, the beauty of that is there's no goodwill. And that was the first of 4 transactions that we used, that we consummated using the mutual form of ownership. Our other 4 transactions were typical deals. We bought distressed properties. We bought a bank, a Greek bank, headquartered, parent company, headquartered in Athens. We bought a Portuguese bank, headquartered in Lisbon. We bought a Puerto Rican bank, headquartered in San Juan. All of these banks, $4 billion, over $4.5 billion of deposits brought into the bank with a goodwill number of less than 2%. Now, normally, goodwill is approximately it's 5 to 6%, 5 to 8% on many of these transactions. We were out there at the height of the recession in 2009, 10, and 11, looking for bargains and expanding our brand, expanding our market reach. We today are the only bank that extends from the suburbs of Philadelphia, of a bank headquartered in New Jersey, from the suburbs of Philadelphia to Bergen County and eastern Long Island. Now, if we look, I'm one behind here, okay. The final thing, again, as we've gotten bigger, as we've grown, 400 employees to 1,500 employees, the investment in our employees has been one of our highest priorities. I mentioned earlier that we hired a consultant and we worked with this individual for almost 2 years. We trained close to 400 people in the retail bank, from the head tellers to the tellers, all the way up to branch managers, all the way up through the management of the company. Well, when I talked to him back in 2012, when he was re-upping his engagement, I said to him, why don't you cross the line of the theory of leadership and sales training and join us? So in April of 2 years ago, we hired him as our Chief Culture Officer. And he is in charge. He is my disciple. And the biggest fear I have managing this company is losing, like I said earlier, losing its soul, losing its heart. And he is in charge of keeping that momentum coming. Every morning, that department sends out a morning juice, an inspirational message. We've had concerts with employees that have stepped forward. Employees have stepped forward. We had 3 of them for Sandy relief. But these are the things, the little things that matter, that create great chemistry and a great team. And then finally, some of the things I mentioned in 2005, our IPO. Well, the community involvement that we have in our organization is unique. In 2005, in connection with the IPO, we made a $20 million donation to our foundation. That came out of expense, came out of the shareholders' pockets. Well, that $20 million we've given away in the last 7 years, $10 million, and because of our stock price, it has gone up. The foundation principal has gone up to $33 million. Last week, we got approval from the Federal Reserve to demutualize totally 100%, and we've announced a capital raise in December to raise another $2 billion. As part of that capital raise, we're going to make another $20 million contribution to the foundation, bringing that total up to $53 million. Our stock will come out somewhere between 1 and 110 of book value. Our peers are trading at 170, 175. So the downside risk of that, I can't say that. The downside risk of the stock is probably minimal, but the upside is a lot of potential. If we trade like our peers, that foundation could be $75, $80 million. That's what's significant about investors. We're a regional community bank with an $80 million foundation that can have impact in the communities that we serve. And at the end of the day, again, being the accountant, I have to touch on the numbers. Right now we consider ourselves a growth company, but in a lot of respects, we have to become a knowledge company and a learning company. And if you look at this asset growth, it's been phenomenal. We've outpaced any of our competition here in New Jersey. It's almost $10 billion in growth. We closed our last acquisition in January, and we surpassed the $16 billion mark. With the $2 billion in capital raise that we expect to close late April, early May, and plus with our anticipated growth in 2014, we'll be a $19, $20 billion company, one of the largest commercial bank in New Jersey, with 18% capital, more than twice the level of capital that we need. That capital will be our fuel, our source to grow to 30, 35 billion. So that's a lot of wood to cut over the next 5 years. The loan growth, if you look at our mix, this is really where the business has changed. All right, in 2007, like I said earlier, we had only 10% of our loans in commercial. We finished 2013 with a $7 billion commercial loan portfolio. We've created a $7 billion business through the worst recession since the Great Recession. Our balance sheet, and this is for the accountants in the room, is a thing called the allowance for loan losses. As you see, it was 19 basis points in 2007. Now it's 133 basis points. Our coverage ratio to non-performing loans surpasses all of our peers in this mark. We wanted to build a fortress balance sheet through this recession while increasing our income and building a bank that's built to last, so that if the next great recession comes, we'll be prepared for it. Now, our biggest challenge facing us now is deposits. I joke with our loan officers, but if you look at this, the 121% in 2013, that puts us as an outlier. Our loan growth has outpaced our deposit growth. We've gone from 45 branches to 130 branches, but it seems that I feel like the Seinfeld episode when they're talking about car reservations. You can make the reservation, but you can't keep the reservation. Well, here, our business bankers can lend the money, but they can't bring the money in fast enough. So that's our biggest challenge, because once you cross that $10 billion mark, the regulatory scrutiny that you have changes immensely. And things like liquidity and loans to deposit ratio are talked a lot more, and sometimes more, than credit quality and interest rate risk. And if you look at some of the crisis, if you look back in 2008, 2009 during the crisis, when WAMU failed, Wachovia failed, Citibank was bailed out, it really wasn't a capital issue. It was a liquidity and a funding issue. And once you cross that 10 billion mark, there's two levels, the 10 billion to 50, and then the over 50 billion mark. But in that 10 billion mark, the regulators look at you on a specific basis and actually calculate a loss factor that investors would have to the FDIC insurance fund. So that's why we spend a lot of time with the retail teams trying to expand our deposits. And we have a branch right down the street on South Orange Avenue, and our branch manager is here. So if anyone wants to come down and open up an account, I'll give you a great interest rate, okay? Matter of fact, 1%. Give them 1%. So, again, where the rubber meets the road, it's the P&L and the revenue growth. In 2007, we made $12 million. You know, it was a 2.5% return on equity. In 2008, in the middle of the recession, we made 25 million, 24 million, 35 million in 2009. This past year, we had a record year, 116 million. Our revenue growth has been mostly in the net interest income, and that's our biggest challenge going forward, is driving the non-interest fee income businesses into the organization and developing new ways to bring non-interest, not being reliant on loans and securities. But we were at a point where we didn't want to spread ourselves strategically too wide. Do one thing well, master that before you move to the next thing. And then finally, in the results to our peer group, you know, as I said earlier, we were at a 2.5% return on equity in 2007. We exceeded our peers. We're probably, of the banks over $1 billion, we're in the top 10% of our peer group today, as far as return on equity, return on assets, efficiency ratio, and then the allowance for loan losses and our asset quality of non-performing loans to total loans. These three matrices, return on equity, efficiency ratio, and credit quality, are the three key ratios that drive our company. And where do we go as far as stock performance? You know, we compare ourselves to the KBW and the SNL, US Bank and Thrift, that's the yellow line, and then the SNL, KBW, US Thrift indexes, and we've outperformed all our competitors and all our peers. There's one bank, I must say, in the New York region that and if you really has done another outstanding job, it's Signature Bank, headquartered in New York. They have a similar chart, and they've done an outstanding job. But as far as the New Jersey banks, no bank has put up those types of numbers. So I've spent a lot of time, and I think I wanted to bridge the gap of what we call the soft things in the business to, as Bill Parcells would say, you are what your record is. And the story, sharing this story of Investors Bank with you, I'd like to finish up tonight to share some of what I've learned myself individually on my own personal journey in the accounting and business profession. First and foremost, I was a winner, a grand prize winner of the parent lottery. And I was blessed with outstanding parents who set a great example for me. My parents led by example and knew that people do what they see and not what they hear. Secondly, I made a great choice, or I was lucky to have a wife, Patricia, who chose me as a partner to raise our family of 4 kids here in New Jersey. My wife for 33 years has been my best friend and confidant, and has allowed me to grow as a person at home and at work. And then reading books. I gave a talk to the FEI, the Financial Executives Institute, and at that talk I asked them, what books do you read? And most of them said, all we do is read FASBs. And when I thought about my career, my time in public accounting, I spent way too much time not reading books on leadership and self-improvement, but really spending time reading FASBs. But reading books now is my hobby. I take 3 weeks off in the summer up in Nantucket, and I spend my time reading books by John Maxwell, Steve Farber, Bob Buford, and Ken Blanchard. And these books and these discussions have molded my thoughts on leadership and helped me formulate my own standards based largely from my experiences growing up in Jersey City and my athletic career in high school and college. Seeking out mentors and striving for constant improvement is the fuel on the journey to success in business and, more importantly, in life. Remember, and don't forget this, remember, the journey is the destination, and the joy is climbing the mountain, not being on the mountaintop. I get less sleep now than I did 5 years ago in 2007 when we were making $12 million. I was drinking No Worry any morning. I had no cares. We had nothing to go. We had no place to go but up. But now that we're at the top of the heap, just look at Jamie Dimon and J.P. Morgan Chase. There's one place to go when you're on the top of the heap. In their book, The Go-Giver, authors Bob Berg and John David Mann write about the 5 laws of stratospheric success. One of those is the law of authenticity, which says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. Always strive to be the genuine you, not someone you think the world wants you to be. Be the best, the most honest, the most authentic you, and you'll be surprised at how far that can take you. And don't just bring your technical expertise. Bring your entire self, your whole being. I know that here at Stillman School, that is precisely what you're focused on, developing the whole you, the mind, the heart, and the spirit. In other words, develop the authentic you. When you get out into the business world, you will realize how valuable that is. Authenticity will serve you well in your everyday dealings with your coworkers, other customers, and even more so as you confront ethical dilemmas. Being trustworthy, fair, likable, and genuine can make up for a host of shortcomings. Your technical expertise as an analyst or an accountant is a given. The person you are and how you treat and relate other people will play the greatest role in your ability to rise through the ranks in any corporation. Leadership brings with it great responsibility, because when you think about it, what is leadership? Leadership is influence, and influence is a powerful force. Now is the time to decide what type of leader you intend to be. Now is the time to decide what kind of influence you want to have on the people you'll guide and the organizations you'll create. Decide now to make it a practice to lead with your heart as well as your head. Decide now to be a leader who puts others first. Decide now to have a plan. Decide now to be accountable. John Maxwell describes something he calls the leader's greatest weight, and that is final responsibility. Maxwell tells us great leaders are fully accountable and take complete ownership for everything they do. Leadership is not excuse management. It is about getting things done. It's about realization of your dreams. Great leaders don't play the blame game. Rather, they step up and they accept responsibility for their teams and their own actions and decisions. To be ethical, you must first be accountable. As you embark on your career, you are bound to make mistakes. And guess what? So what? In fact, mistakes are imperative to growth. So give yourself permission to make some. But don't try to gloss over those errors. Hold your head high, take responsibility, and then take time to reflect and to learn from those mistakes. After all, our biggest failures and disappointments are our biggest opportunities to learn and grow. Mistakes can be great motivators. They test your mettle. They create perseverance and build character. I'm not too proud of this, but I took the CPA exam 4 times before I passed it. But you know what the funny thing is? No one ever asked me how many times I took it. But each time I failed, and I failed, each time I was more determined to succeed. Finally, keep in mind that accountability doesn't stop with your shareholders. The best business leaders are accountable also to their communities. During my early years at KPMG, I had a singular goal. I wanted to make partner. My only real regret in those 10 years is that I didn't set aside time to do something positive for my community. I was so engaged in that goal of making partner. Always remember that there is a world outside the company walls, a community beyond the corporate park. Giving back is the ultimate sign of maturity and strong leadership. I hope you'll always remember to contribute to your community, not because you want something in return, but simply because it's the right thing to do. And if you do that, if you give generously with an open heart and no agenda, you'll reap all kinds of wonderful awards. Many a wise philosopher has said, it's not the receiver of the gift, but the giver of the gift who benefits most. Winston Churchill said, we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give back. The more you give, until it hurts, the more you give, the more you will receive. It is a concept that spans the Bible to Buddhism. And yes, it really does apply in business. As I said earlier, when I look at Investors Bank, there is no doubt that the more that we've done for the community, the more we've succeeded. I hope that my thoughts tonight have shed some light on the financial industry, especially for those of you who may be planning to pursue a career in banking. I certainly encourage you to do so. I can tell you that my career at both KPMG and Investors Bank has exceeded my expectations. It's provided me with work that is both challenging and deeply satisfying, as well as the opportunity to interact with some special people every day. I leave you with just a few final words. Whatever career you decide on, do it with passion and do it with a sense of purpose. Do it with integrity, do it with professionalism. There's no such thing as a right to success, but there's a right way to achieving success. If you stick to your core values, if you are accountable for your actions, if you treat others the way you like to be treated, you'll be well on your way. Thank you for your attention. God bless, and have a good evening. Thank you. Okay, I didn't go into overtime, so we have some time for some questions.
And we do have microphones at both sides of the room, so if anybody has a question, please just raise your hand. Make sure we get a microphone to you.
ISBC. I didn't see it today. Oh, excuse me.
No, it's all right. Hey, Kevin, I'm Mark Janiak. I'm an accounting major here at Stillman School of Business. At Investors Bank, how do you value the questioning or acceptance of popular thinking, and how does that value affect your daily decisions at the bank?
Okay, I had trouble hearing that.
How do you value the questioning or acceptance of popular thinking, and how does that affect you and your business?
How do I accept popular thinking?
Yes.
I think popular thinking comes and goes. What's true has stayed true, and you treat people the way you want to be treated. And that's been our consistent message throughout. You know, in today's, there's a lot of talk about millennials and the changing culture and things like that. On the technology side, you have to really pay strong attention to it. It's very important. That's the how and the what. You know, you have to improve, make investments in technology. But with respect to dealing with people and the relationship part of the business, the why, creating that emotional attachment, creating that emotion that people feel the excitement of being part of the Investors Bank story, that doesn't change. And that has never changed. You know, the same attitudes that people had, whether in sports, when, you know, you're looking back in the years, whether it was the Yankees or the Knicks, when they were great in the 60s and the 70s, or today, that success and that chemistry is necessary. But you can't take it for granted. You got to work on it every day, and you got to keep on improving.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes. Well, we created the Investor University. And actually, right now, we just engaged with some consultants, GBI Consultants, an international consulting firm. And it's funny, but we have 1,500 employees at the bank and 800 job descriptions. We have 40 job descriptions in the retail bank where 700 people are. So that means for the other 800 people, we have 750 job descriptions. So as we've made this transformation, changing the business model, in the HR function and in the training section area of the bank, we made significant investments using consultants. Now we want to start bringing things in-house. We want to create career paths for each and every employee, reduce that number of job descriptions, and also clearly define the jobs with what's necessary from a training perspective, what's necessary from an education perspective, what core courses they need, say for a head teller position, all the different tellers on the retail side of the bank. And as we do that, someone who joins the bank can hopefully create a career path where they can be in 3, 4, and 5 years and out. Sure. Yeah, it's, in the community bank practice, there is, especially here with this crowd, and as the younger people come up, there is fewer and fewer transactions through the branch mainline. We're at a size with 130 branches that we still are opening branches. Now, we're scheduled to open probably 6 branches across the year. What you find is you'll see less investment in the brick and mortar, smaller branches, because of the other outlets that are being used. But really, it's the people part of the business. Once you have a problem, you may not be going into the branch with that problem. You might be calling our call center. And that call center, that touch, wherever we touch that customer, we need that Ritz-Carlton world. Sure. The key, one of our, when we went public in 2005, we were an overcapitalized institution. And we told the analyst community our plan to leverage that capital. It was organic growth, treasury stock purchases, paid dividends, and lastly, acquisitions that don't dilute tangible book value. Banks in our space trade based on 2 parameters: PE ratio and tangible book value, multiple of tangible book. Prior to the recession, banks were being sold at 2.5 times book. That drifted down. So in other words, if you bought a bank that was trading at $10 or its book value, tangible book value was $10 a share, you would look to purchase it at $20, $25 a share. That squeezed down as a result of the recession, and the premiums left. When we made our 8 acquisitions, we only had $77 million in goodwill. So in other words, on 100, we probably today have 130 million shares outstanding. It was less than 60 cents a share dilution to tangible book value. Now, when we do this second step, the whole idea is at what level do we come out at second step, because it's decided by an appraisal, accepted by the SEC and by the regulators. And it's a battle because as we move from a community thrift, with 130 million shares outstanding and do this second step, we're going to issue 200 million shares in this offering. And at what value of tangible book value do you go out? So right now the appraisal has us from 97% to about 115%. And the midpoint's about 107. So we look at that and say 107 is a beautiful place to be because there's only one place. Your downside risk at 107 when your peers are trading at 170, 175, and 180. So the upside potential post-second step is very positive today on today's valuations. Yes? Well, initially, we got involved in the construction business, and that was the principal, construction lending, residential tract building here in New Jersey. In 2009, we hired a team in New York City to start multifamily lending. 2008, we had 44 million in multifamily loans. Today, we have 4 billion. So we made a big bet on multifamily lending in the 5 boroughs, in basically Brooklyn, North Jersey, Manhattan, and Queens. And we have a $4 billion portfolio of the $7 billion in commercial loans. We have about a $1.7 billion portfolio of commercial real estate, which is basically income-producing properties. And in 2008, we entered this business lending. That's the lines of credits. We hired a medical team out of a competing bank. We got into asset-based lending in the fourth quarter of 2013. We created a municipal business that does some municipal lending and creates great opportunities to bring in deposits to finance the loans. So right now, it's about $4 billion in multifamily. That was our biggest bet. $1.5 billion, $1.6 billion in commercial real estate, about $700 million in business lending, and then the smallest piece is construction now, which is under $225 million. We've greatly reduced the percentage of our total loans, total commercial loans, to the construction portfolio.
You mentioned that in those first few years of your career, those 10 years at KPMG, that you had difficulty, or your biggest regret was not being able to give back and be a major participant in your community. Would you say that being engaged in the community was more difficult as you were starting out your career? And if so, do you have any advice to people going into new careers that would like to be more involved in their communities going forward?
You know, I really think that you're more selfish, you know, in the early part of your career. I mean, it was my whole, you know, I think the longest journey is from a, you know, a baby, who's the most selfish person in the world is a baby, a child, to a selfless adult. And I think when you first start out, you're really just, it's all about me, 100 times, you know, all the time. And having that, you know, if I had gotten involved and maybe coached some youth teams or did some things, I was so involved, and I was just, you know, it wasn't until, you know, actually I got married and then had started having kids that I started getting involved in community activities. So certainly I was involved in community activities as the kids started playing sports. I was the AD at St. Teresa's. But it seems like really in that probably that period from 23 to 27, I was just so concerned with the work and getting started in the business world. You get very enamored, you know, with the big 8 it was back then. And you really think my wife sometimes called it a cult. Like, you guys think you're the best. I mean, I left the firm and people were saying, what are you, crazy? And hey, you know, it's been a great life after the firm. So, you know, public accounting, big 8 accounting, big 4 accounting, it's sort of like a different world. There's life beyond, you know, the big 4 accounting firms. And I think they've kind of come to grips with that because they've changed the way, when I was there, you know, 1 out of 10 made partner, 1 out of 10 got hired, and it was more like, you know, a marathon, an endurance test to, you know, get through the firm. I think they've changed some of their attitudes to how they treat their employees and try to make it you know, a better place to work. Did I answer your question? Okay. Good.
I think we could take one more question if we have.
No, I'll take a couple if you want.
Right,
I'm on a roll. Put some butter on it.
After being in the accounting field for 26 years and being very successful, what made you change into a different field, into the financial field, and how was the transition?
Well, in 2001, 2000, I worked on one of the largest consulting engagements that KPMG ever had. I was the lead partner in Germany on working on Deutsche Bank when they got listed on the New York Stock Exchange. I made 30 trips to Germany in 10 months, and it was a $100 million project, and I was the lead partner on the ground in Frankfurt. Well, at the end of that year, I got a great bonus. It was a great year. Well, the following year was the dot-com bubble, and I had transferred into the New York office after spending a year in Frankfurt, and because of that, I went 26 years without getting raises and bonuses. And because of the dot-com, I didn't get a bonus that year, and I didn't get a raise. It was the first time in my life. I was 48 years old, and I didn't get a raise. So I started, I had to make a decision, because I'm a firm believer. You either get better every day, or you're getting worse. You can never stay to change, never stay to sustain. You have to constantly improve and get better. And I had to make a decision as a 48-year-old, 14-year partner at KPMG. Do I stay here and remake myself and reprove myself, or do I look for another job? Because the worst thing I wanted to be was to become like a political animal working my last 10 years in the firm. And that's, when you work with a big organization, there's a lot of politics. So by chance, on St. Patrick's Day in 2003, I met my son for lunch, came back and got a call from a headhunter. And he said, would you be interested in joining Investors Bank? No, he said, they're looking for a number 2. Do you know anyone who would be interested? And I said, well, maybe I would be. And the rest is history. So it really was me making a decision. Do I really have to remake myself in a new office, in a large international firm? Or do I want to try a new challenge? Malcolm Gladwell has a great book out, David and Goliath. And he talks about the big fish, the big fish in a small pond theory. And talks about a student that made a decision to go to Brown University as opposed to the University of Maryland. And she loved science, and she wanted to be a doctor. Well, she goes up there and gets into organic chemistry class and gets blown away because it was so difficult. Whereas if she'd gone to Maryland, she might have been one of the top 3 smartest kids in the class. And maybe she would have stayed with her, her true passion was science. So what I basically, I made a decision. It's almost like making a college decision. Like I was probably a marginal Division I basketball player, right? I would have been like the 3rd, 4th guard at a Holy Cross or a Dartmouth College. But I go to a school like Middlebury, and I walk in and I play the first, I start as a freshman. So when I look at my decision to leave KPMG, I had been, a very good, high performer in the Short Hills office in New Jersey. I was one of 50 partners in the financial services practice in New York. So do I have to redistinguish myself, or do I go to another situation? I chose to leave.
We'll let Dr. Yin answer or ask the last question.
Hi, Kevin. My name is Jason Yin. I'm very, very impressed with your presentation today. The progress your company made is very, very impressive. And also, you may remember last time we met in 2009. Through John, I led my whole class to have a meeting with you in the evening. At that time, I want to let my student know how to get out the financial crisis. You spent 2 hours talk to us, not just the discussion with us, and also you serve us a very good meal. So we were very impressed, but I was not sure what you said because you're very optimistic at that time, and I was a little bit disappointed. Not as
black hair then.
But anyway, I want to take this opportunity to thank you, make yourself and all your colleagues available for Seton Hall. I really appreciate it, and they give a very good discussion or lessons. Now my question is, I wish our GDP grew as fast as yours company. So I hope our government has done as good as your bank. If Governor Christie come to you or President Obama come to you, what kind of advice you may give them? Thank you.
Well, today some job numbers came out and they weren't too impressive. We're in the midst, I think, of a new normal. I mean, it's very difficult environment. The economy is a low velocity economy. There's talk in Washington of increasing taxes. I was at a session just recently down in Princeton with Professor Sims, a Princeton professor, economics professor, talking about the level of debt in the country. But to me, from where I sit, the average person has been hurt by the economic policies of here in New Jersey with a Republican, and then back in Washington with a Democrat. It's not a political issue. There's a lack of jobs and job creation. You know, we have the lowest level of employment participation since the Carter years. And I think, from where I sit, you know, I think we probably have to raise personal rates, but lower the corporate rate. You know, lower the corporate rate so that we can be competitive and bring some jobs that are offshore into the American economy. We have to make more investments. I think the president wants to do that, but I don't think it's in the green energy. It might be, I mean, it might be in the fracking or in the technology sector. But we really need more jobs. The last stimulus was a lot of road work. It wasn't really sustainable. There was a lot of jobs, you know, that were, you know, just pulled off the shelf because there was such a need to get the stimulus into the economy. And we really haven't seen, you know, the sustainability of a lot of those jobs. So when I sit, we have to get better jobs. We have to lower the corporate tax rate, probably offset that with increase in personal taxes, and then just you know, let the animal spirits go. You know, I listen on Saturday. I'm not home that often at 7 o'clock, but listen to Kudlow on WABC. You know, he's really, you know, a free market person. I'm a firm believer. You know, on a dollar bill, it doesn't say in government we trust, right? It says in God we trust. And I trust in the American people and the capitalist system that we can pull ourselves out of this, and that the more the government interferes, like with Obamacare, you know, with other the banking regulation that we have now, Dodd-Frank, you know, Sarbanes-Oxley, you know, these things just make doing business in America more costly. I mentioned earlier the Deutsche Bank New York Stock Exchange listing project. Well, no one is going crazy because of Sarbanes-Oxley to get listed on the New York Stock Exchange now, you know, the foreign companies. The regulation in this country has to be pulled back, and we have to have a more friendly business environment.
Please, everybody, join me in thanking Mr. Cummings for a wonderful evening.